Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Rob Ryan. It's stoppage time for Friday, October 4th. Seems like we're like 10% of the way into a new month. We just ended a month. I hadn't even caught up on the fact that that one ended yet. So much going on all the time, every day, every week. It seems like there's a new deadline, a new goal, a new objective, three things left behind that I'm trying to catch up on. But everybody who follows or listens to this or is part of my circles in life is entrepreneurial in their own rights, and so everybody understands that constant kind of cycle that we get caught up in. But this week it slowed down a little bit for a few little blocks of time, and that's really just all that's been on my mind is the reasons that it slowed down. And so it's a bit of an unconventional stoppage time this week for y'all. I mostly, excuse me, was just really focused on kind of the personal milestones in my life this week. So it was my daughter's birthday yesterday, earlier this week, and we got a chance to get together and visit. We had some coffee, some cinnamon buns at one of our favorite places on our favorite street in our favorite neighborhood, and we just hung out. And we both joked and kind of reminisced and laughed at the idea that she's 31 years old. Because although I talk about my age all the time with you all here and in general in my circles and with my friends, I get it. I'm 56 years old, but like I don't feel old enough to have a 31-year-old woman as my daughter, let alone as she and I were talking. Can we believe that like we've been on this journey together for this incredible like length of time? Because it seems like just yesterday that she was either this big or this big or this big or in high school or in college. And in fact, all those milestones were quite a long time ago. But the other thing that was on our mind while we were hanging out visiting this week was the really big milestone in our personal lives, in my personal life, but really primarily in hers and Henry's life, which is that they're about to have their first baby. And that means I'm about to get my first grandchild. I'm about to become a grandfather to a grandson, which is unbelievably a gift. And that has been on my mind no matter what else has been on my mind this week. The whole idea of there being a new generation of the family expanding, of there being this new person, as a really good friend of mine joked with me the other day, like, oh my God, you have a completely new, like unformed, unbiased human to tell all your stories to, Rob, right? Another friend from Mexico teased me and said, like, this is the transition from Uncle Rob, which is what, like Tio Rob, which I've been known as throughout the Latin American entrepreneurial economy over the last 8-9 years, to Abuelo Rob, right? Which is again, you can see it. It's such a gift, but in that journey and in this like reminiscence that we were going through, like we talked about all kinds of things, right? We talked about her work here in Hollywood. We talked about my work. We talked about her transition in this now on maternity leave, getting ready to have a baby, what comes afterwards, all that kind of stuff, and then my own transition, going from consultative CEO these last 8 or 9 years across Latin America, building our company called Growth Hacks, to now podcaster, and even just getting myself used to saying that, right? There's just so many emotions and excitements and fears and anxieties and new beliefs and possibilities and like there's just so many emotions, right, across the entire spectrum of this that we go through and that I've been going through recently during this transition. So it was an incredible kind of juxtaposition this week of really, really appreciating and thinking mostly in my brain about the importance of the deepest, most important relationships to me, the relationships with the people that I love the most. I got to see a great friend this past week who I haven't seen in like 8 months. Probably won't see a whole lot more because she's traveling and she's going to be moving. And so just living in that moment that day, it was like, that was a great day, or half a day spent together, right? It was a great morning to spend it with my daughter. I'm going to go down this weekend coming up here to spend some time with my dearest friend, because she's in a tough spot, kind of going through a transition of placing her mom into a care facility and then having to deal with like her mom's house and all this kind of stuff. And so I'm just going to go be maybe an extra set of arms and legs to move some stuff around, but mostly just to be emotional support for my best friend as she goes through a life transition. And so all these moments just kind of overwhelmed me consistently, reminding me that, it's just about the relationships that matter most. It's about kind of this series of small circles, like concentric circles. All right, our lives as individuals and our business lives are just series of concentric circles. I talk about that. I've done presentations over the last 8 years around the concentric circles of fundraising for entrepreneurs, and both the math as well as the psychology of that is so similar to what we do in our personal lives, right? And how we chase kind of the relationships on the outer circle, the least known people, the people that we supposedly want to get to know or want to attach or want to collect or need validation from. And the whole goal is like, everybody has this fantasy of like, I want my circle in the middle to be the biggest, right? This is a weird reference point, but like growing up Irish Catholic in the city of Chicago, when I did, like, going to funerals, going to wakes, Irish wakes for people that had passed away in your family or in your community was a very common thing, both celebratory and sad. And then there was always this kind of validation, like societally validating reference point of like, how big do you think your funeral will be? Like, how many people do you think, oh boy, Jimmy had 1,000 people, they were lined up out the door at the church. Like that was somehow like a validating statement on your life, right? Which is just so silly. But this week has just been this kind of series of emotions, series of kind of very obvious triggers and catalysts in a clear period of transition for me that I don't necessarily know that I always slow down enough to appreciate. So today I am slowing down to appreciate it in the context of sharing it with you. And by the way, when I share these things with you, you see me glance sometimes because I take notes. So I actually write out my thoughts. It's the best way for me to communicate with myself and then eventually with you. So I write out my general thoughts into a written form, and then I save them. And they're essentially becoming kind of long form blogs or journals that maybe someday I'll reproduce, or maybe we share them in the show notes in summarized condensed form for the Stoppage Time episodes. But maybe at some point I'll share them in a wider view. But as I go through this, I just kept thinking about the circles in our lives, right? And I just kept thinking about the circles of people in my life, and how as I've gotten older and I like to think more mature, I've become more selective, and I've shifted from kind of this mentality, as I referenced before, of most people kind of take for granted their innermost circles. Those people will always be there. Those people will always love me. Those people will always support me, right? I'm going to go pay attention to all the people in the furthest out circles because I want their approval. They're the people I want to be attached to. They're the famous people I want to be around. They're the famous people I want to think of me like. And I'll get back to the people that matter most. Yeah, and I did that for a long time. I did that for a couple decades early in my career, in my younger life. And come to realize that like those innermost circles don't stay strong. They don't stay present. They don't stay there. Sometimes you go back to that inner circle assuming someone or something's going to be the way it was, or it's going to be there and it's not there at all, or it is there and it's dramatically changed. So I live a life now, both personally and professionally, that is just super focused on the smallest circles, and then the next one, and then the next one. Right, but the way that I'm doing it is that the outside circle will be populated with people that I didn't know, but those people will have kind of concentrically related relationships and reference points to other people on the inner circles. And eventually just the outermost circle is just going to be super strong, filled with high quality people who are very well aligned with everything that I believe in and stand for. And eventually the circle might wind up slightly larger. But the value of each level of these circles, and I always say there's kind of 3 or 4 in any typical life, the value of them will become independently powerful. So having said that, and not surprisingly, that this is kind of what's on my mind, right? It just bled into my work as well, because my work is so publicly aligned. What I do here with you all on this show, how I host and interview guests on our Entrepreneurial Thinkers show, how we curate and craft the messaging that we share and the content that Deanna and Anna Paula create and share for us on behalf of Entrepreneurial Thinkers, on behalf of Storytellers Company and our fundraising efforts there, or just the personal stories that I share in my Rob stories, like every day since December 30th or 31st of 2015. Right? It's all so aligned, it's all so tied together that like as I've gone through this transition and I'm pushing forward on these projects, going from podcaster to taking these podcasts and commercializing them, right? Taking these podcasts and expanding them and expanding the commercialization opportunities of them into writing a book next year, into taking some of our alumni community from our Entrepreneurial Thinkers community, former guests, and bringing those people in the form of live events to their communities and to the communities of others in our network, so to speak. Like, it's all just about like high quality people and about really only, again, maybe I sound like the old guy who's just focused on what's important to him and like to the detriment of everything else, right? But like, it's really just about the value of valuing the value in the people that are already in my circle. So perfect example, like we've got some amazing shows that are upcoming. We've got some amazing shows that have recently dropped, but just like, let me just reference the notes here, just some fascinating kind of truths about how we got to some of the shows that so recently, for example, we dropped an episode with Carol Shee from Code, Quode. Incredible story, incredible conversation. Please go listen to it, subscribe, follow, like, connect with her, engage with the episode, tell us what you thought about it, tell us how it affected you. But like, we met Carol through two former show alumni, Amy Kim and her husband Yogi Roth, my friend Yogi and his wife Amy, right? So we met Carol through that. Like, I interviewed my friend Mickey Reynolds, who is, again, another multiple time alumnus of the show, but she was also working on something completely new now, right? And when I interviewed Mickey, while we were talking, we referenced other people that are in our close circle, and subsequent to that, then, like people she mentioned, Geffen Skolnick, like I've interviewed Geffen, we just had that conversation, or Lupe Tenchi. Sorry, it's a tough one to get used to saying properly, Lupe, and that was an incredible conversation, right? During the interview with Mickey, she says, you've got to talk to Amantha Bagden from RX Post. And I just had the amazing pleasure of interviewing Amantha, and just incredible, right? Like, I posted that I was going back and forth with my good friend Kiana Patterson about having her on the show, which she will be on the show here in October. And in the process of that, like, she posted to social media and says, but I want to see these three people on the show. One of whom had already been on the show, by the way. And then two who hadn't. One I had been trying to, one I had never met, but I'd always been intrigued by, wanted to talk to. And boom, now I've had the good pleasure of interviewing both Erica Lucas and Marie Roca from Connecticut and from Oklahoma. Again, just all of these circles, right? Like the episode that just dropped this week with Matt Mulrennan talking about the oceans and talking about ocean investing. I met Matt directly, but then immediately after meeting Matt directly at an event not too long ago, a couple years back, like I was inundated with good people between us, mutual friends here in the entrepreneurial economy in LA, who said nothing but good things about Matt, right? So incredible people. And as we used to joke, what do they say in the movies? Like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, right? Or 6 degrees of separation, right? Like the entire world is essentially just your network or your potential community. It's the series of concentric circles that you live in, that you operate in. And I think as Deanna and I have realized, Deanna, my show producer, our excellent world-class show producer here, everything underneath the Storytellers Company banner, and for both Entrepreneurial Thinkers and this show, Stoppage Time every week. She and I realized, like at the end of last year, that the real value that exists that we provide is these people. And these people, as the value proposition that we offer to the world, our unique take on these people, our unique connectivity with these people, our access to these people and to the people that they know through their relationships, right? Like that's a gift of just curated, intentional, purposeful, very loving, specific, thoughtful relationships, right? It's not from networking. We talked last week about relationships over networking, right? Like this is what this is. This is what that looks like in practice. So I talked to you last week about how to do it. I'm sharing you this week just anecdotal stories that validate that this is what happens when you live a life or pursue your business the way that we do here. So you are just as capable of doing this as I am. It's all about building quality relationships. If you're not satisfied with the people in your life, find better people. If you're dissatisfied with the people in your life who have been with you for long periods of time, find better people. If you don't have enough people, you're early in your career, you're in a new city, you're in a new market, get in the way of good people. Don't just chase people, get in the way of good people. And you know how you find good people? You find one, and then you ask that person, who do they know? Right? And then when they introduce you to good people, you double down on those relationships, and you find other good people through those good people. And then the next thing you know, you're surrounded by good people. Right? So it started a little unconventionally. It's a little bit personal. Of course, I tie it back to the Entrepreneurial Thinkers podcast because I want you to go and watch and enjoy. And that's how I'm going to end this. I'm not going to give you a book recommendation this week, nor a podcast recommendation, except to recommend our own podcast. I just encourage you to go back and listen to and enjoy and learn from and be inspired by and be informed by all the historic episodes of Entrepreneurial Thinkers, and then in its prior iteration, in our original brand, Mentors Today. All those shows live on forever. And you know what we did today? We recorded episode number 140, which is just incredible. I've talked before about how few podcasts get past 5 episodes, past 20 episodes, past 50 episodes, past 100 episodes, past or to 125 episodes, past or to 150 episodes or more. Like, we're narrowing in on the top, tiniest percentage of, like, less than 1% or 0.75% of all podcasts ever produced actually produce this many episodes. And we've had the great pleasure of doing this. I'm not sharing that statistic to brag. I'm sharing it to tell you that there is a digital library of knowledge and experience and wisdom and perspective and inspiration and encouragement and different perspectives from all across industry, from all sectors of society, from all across the world. There's this digital library that is like you could jokingly, it's like an MBA in your pocket via Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Or now, like the last 40-ish episodes or so are also on YouTube. So I just implore you to go take advantage of that resource. I go back and listen to old episodes sometimes, and I'm like, holy shit, I forgot about that amazing conversation and that wisdom that this person shared, or that perspective that I needed at that moment. It all exists right there. So I'm just imploring you to take advantage of it. Mostly, we create these conversations, we create these shows, we create this content because we want to hopefully through conversation leave the world a little bit better than we found it. And we can only do that if you, the world, take advantage of all of this value that we are presenting to you on a weekly basis. So that's stoppage time for this week. Deanna's going to laugh because I actually told her while I was scripting this that I thought this was going to be a shorter one. I should just literally never say that to her because it almost guarantees it's going to be a longer one. Yeah, sometimes it's the most personal things that mean the most to me, and therefore I have the most to say. But I love y'all. I send you nothing but encouragement and energy and positivity and love and belief as you head into your stoppage time between the end of your week and the beginning of your weekend. And maybe this week I send you a little bit of humility in hopes that you appreciate the quality people that you're surrounded by, or since you're surrounded by me and our team, we're giving you access to all these other really amazing good people that we've already vetted. So you can jump in and share our relationship network and our small circle while you build yours, because these people are here to help you become the best versions of yourselves. And again, hopefully leave the world a little bit better than we found it. As I end with my beloved friendly construction workers, who, by the way, I love these guys, even though I complain about them every week, who are remodeling the apartments above and below me. And driving Deanna nuts in the process with all their noise. But hey, it's part of life's journey. So peace. We'll see you next week.